The telepathic alien gasps when I think of her, and she's always on my mind, no one. On the Helios Deep Space Station expected trouble from the human. Humans were new to the Galactic Union. Compared to other species, they were considered simple. No natural telepathy. No shared consciousness. No mental discipline training from birth. Just noisy thoughts trapped inside fragile brains. That was what the record said. The human's name was Ethan Cross, an engineer assigned to station maintenance. He fixed air systems, power lines, and old machines that other species did not understand. He worked quietly, spoke politely, and followed orders. Most aliens ignored him, except Lyrai. Lyrai was a Velithian telepath, one of the strongest mind readers in the Union. Species evolved with open minds. Thoughts flowed between them like gentle water, rare. Silence was respected. She had been assigned to observe humans, not because humans were dangerous, but because humans were unknown. During her first week on the station, Lyrai monitored dozens of species. Minds felt different but predictable. Logical species had clean, straight thoughts. Emotional species had soft waves. Aggressive species burned hot and sharp. Did again. Then she brushed against Ethan's mind. She froze. Woo! Her breath caught sharply, and her hands tightened against the railing. That had never happened before. Ethan was walking down the corridor, carrying a toolbox. He did not look at her. He did not know she was there. Yet her mind reeled. His thoughts were not loud, but they were deep. Layers upon layers moved at once. Memory, emotion, imagination, and focus overlapped like storm clouds stacked on top of each other, and at the center of it all, her. Lyrai gasped. Several nearby telepaths turned toward her in shock. "What happened?" one asked urgently. She steadied herself, forcing her breathing to slow. I made contact with the human. Silence spread through the mental network. "Did he attack you?" another asked. Accused. "No," Lyrai replied, confused. "He didn't notice me at all." That made no sense. Human minds were supposed to be weak, easy to read, easy to ignore. Yet this one had shaken her without effort. Wah. She focused again, carefully this time. Ethan was thinking about his work. A broken coolant valve, a schedule delay, down, a memory of Earth, blue skies, and loud rain. Then, without warning, his thoughts drifted to her. Not her face, not her form, but the idea of her, the calm presence near the observation deck, the way her voice sounded through the translator, the way she listened when others spoke. Lyrai felt a sudden pressure in her chest. She pulled away instantly. Her heart, something Velithians rarely felt strongly, was racing. "This is not normal," she said quietly. The senior telepath frowned. "Humans cannot project thoughts." "He is not projecting," Lyrai replied. "He is focusing." Later that cycle, Ethan sat alone in the maintenance bay, reviewing data on a flickering screen. He felt tired. The station was quiet, but his mind was not. It never was. He thought about his home, himself, about the stars, about how strange and beautiful the galaxy felt. And without understanding why, he thought about Lyrai. She had been kind to him. Most aliens were distant or curious, but she listened. That mattered to him. He did not know that every time her image formed in his mind, it sent a ripple outward. Lyrai was in the telepathic chamber when it hit her again. Not as strong as before, but clearer. She inhaled sharply. "He's doing it again," she whispered. The council gathered quickly. This time they watched closely as Lyrai connected gently to Ethan's surface thoughts. There was no hostility, control, just presence. Whoa! His mind did not open like other species. It stood, solid and wide like a mountain. Thoughts moved constantly, but the core never broke. "He carries so much," Lyrai said softly. "Fear, hope, curiosity, attachment." "Attachment?" the council leader asked. "Yes, humans attach meaning to individuals. When they do, those thoughts return again and again." Was this inefficient? Lyrai shook her head slowly. "It is powerful." For the first time in her long career, she felt something unfamiliar. Respect. The next day, Lerai approached Ethan in person. He looked up from his console and smiled. "Hey," he said, "need something fixed?" She studied him closely. The mind that overwhelmed her looked so ordinary from the outside. "No," she replied, "wished to speak." They sat together in the observation lounge, watching stars drift past the glass. Ethan talked about Earth, about storms, about oceans, bringing the same places that no longer existed the same way. As he spoke, his thoughts moved freely, and every thought brushed against her mind like a warm current. Lerai did not gasp this time. Wash. She listened. For the first time, she understood something the galaxy had missed. Humans were not weak-minded. They were unshielded. And that made them dangerous in ways no one had prepared for. As Ethan stood to leave, he paused. "You know," he said, scratching his head, "I don't know why, but I feel calmer when you're around." Lerai felt her chest tighten again. So did his mind. And deep in the station's records, a new warning began to form. Human thoughts may be harmless alone, but when focused, they change everything. After that conversation in the observation lounge, things began to change. Not on the surface of Helios Station. Machines still hummed, aliens still walked their routines, humans still worked their shifts. But beneath it all, something invisible had started to grow. Lerai felt it first. She was trained to disconnect from individual minds when her work was done. Velithian telepaths learned this early in life. Holding on to a single mind for too long was unhealthy, dangerous. Yet when she tried to release Ethan's presence from her thoughts, it did not fully leave. It lingered. Not as noise, not as pressure, but as an echo. She would be reviewing reports when a calm warmth passed through her senses. She would be walking through the station when a sudden feeling of focus filled her mind. Each time she knew the cause, Ethan was thinking. And somehow, part of that thought reached her. This should not be possible, Lerai whispered to herself. She sat in the telepathic chamber, surrounded by soft lights and mental dampeners. The best equipment the Galactic Union had to offer. Slowly, carefully, she reached outward again. Ethan was repairing a power relay 3 levels below. She did not enter his mind. She simply listened. His thoughts moved like a storm held in careful order. There was no chaos, but there was constant motion. He thought about the relay, about safety procedures, about the weight of responsibility, and beneath it all, steady and unshaken, her, not desire, not obsession, recognition. Lerai felt her breath catch. He acknowledges me, she realized. Even when I am not present. Velithians rarely experience such a thing. Their shared minds meant individuals blended together. No single presence stood out for long. But humans were different. They carried others inside their thoughts. The council noticed the changes quickly. Delayed, her focus wandered. She reacted to stimuli before they reached the telepathic network. "You are distracted," the council leader said during a private session. "Yes," Lerai admitted, "by the human." The leader's eyes narrowed slightly. "Explain." "He is not telepathic," she said carefully. "But his mind behaves as if it expects connection. That is impossible." "So is this station," Lerai replied calmly. The council allowed a controlled experiment. Ethan was invited, politely, to participate. He agreed without hesitation. "If it helps you understand us better, I'm in," he said with a small smile. The test chamber was quiet. Ethan sat on one side of the transparent barrier. Lerai sat on the other. No direct contact was allowed. "Do not attempt to read him," the council instructed. "Only observe." Lerai nodded. The test began. Perform simple mental tasks, counting, remembering images, solving logic problems. His thoughts were clear, strong, stable. Then the council gave the final instruction. "Think about the Velithian observer." Ethan blinked. "That's it?" "Yes." He leaned back slightly and closed his eyes. Lerai felt it instantly. A wave, not violent, not painful, but dense. It pressed against her senses like gravity. She gasped softly. The room lights flickered. Several telepaths cried out in surprise as the mental sensors spiked. Ethan opened his eyes. "Did I do something wrong?" "No," Lerai said quickly, standing. "You did nothing wrong." Inside, she was shaking. He had not pushed. He had not reached. He had simply thought. Word, and that was enough. The council ended the test immediately. Lyrae tried to understand what she had felt. Human thoughts did not flow outward naturally. But when focused on a person, they anchored. They returned to the same point, again and again, carrying memory, emotion, and intent each time. That repetition created weight, presence. It is not telepathy, she realized slowly. It is persistence. Meanwhile, Ethan noticed changes too. People watched him more closely now. Some aliens avoided him. Others stared with open curiosity. And Lyrae, she stayed close. Not physically, but mentally. Whenever he felt uncertain, calm followed. When he felt pressure, steadiness returned. He did not know why. One cycle, while repairing an external panel, a sudden system failure sealed the bay doors. Alarms sounded. Oxygen levels dropped. Ethan stayed calm. He thought of procedures, of steps, of time, and of Lyrae, not fearfully. Trustingly, across the station, Lyrae stiffened. She felt the shift instantly. His thoughts were sharper now, focused like a blade, but not aggressive, protective. Without thinking, she reached back, not into his mind, but toward the echo he had left in hers. Their thoughts aligned. Ethan's breathing slowed. He found the solution faster than expected. Doors opened. The alarm stopped. Panic. Later, when they met in the corridor, Lyrae studied him with new understanding. "You were in danger," she said. "Yeah," he replied. "But I don't know. I felt like someone had my back." Her voice softened. "You think of others when you are afraid." He shrugged. "That's human, I guess." "No. It was more than that. The Council's final report that cycle was short, but serious. Humans do not broadcast thoughts. They imprint them. Once noticed, a human mind is difficult to forget. Lyrae read the report twice. Then she added a private note. If humans ever learn to focus together, the galaxy is not ready. And somewhere deep in the station's quiet systems, the echo continued to grow. The warning came too late. Helios Station had detected strange signals at the edge of the system hours before the first impact. Long, thin waves of psychic energy moved through space like invisible knives. This is actor were Kraith. They were an ancient species, feared across the Union. Their bodies were weak, but their minds were weapons. Entire fleets had surrendered without a single shot after facing Kraith mental assaults. Grid. Their target was clear. A multi-species station filled with telepaths. Helios Station went into lockdown. Lyrae felt the first strike before the alarms finished sounding. It was not a single mind. It was a storm. The Kraithots crashed against the station's telepathic defenses, ripping through shared networks. Weaker telepaths screamed, whooped, clutching their heads. Lyrae dropped to one knee. She had faced psychic pressure before. This was different. This was invasion. "Shields are failing," someone shouted. "The mental dampeners won't hold." Lyrae forced herself to breathe. She reached for the station's telepathic network, trying to stabilize it. But the Kraith were skilled. They hunted minds, and then she felt him. Ethan. Vast. He was in a maintenance corridor, far from the command center. He did not hear the telepathic screams, but he felt something was wrong. Fear brushed his thoughts, and then determination followed. He thought of Lyrae, not as a concept, as a person. The moment his focus locked onto her, something changed. Lyrae gasped. The Kraith pressure bent, then stalled. The human's thoughts were not sharp like theirs. They were heavy. They pressed outward like a wall. "Impossible," Lyrae whispered. Kraith sensed it too. They shifted their attack. Instead of spreading across the station, they aimed directly at the source. Ethan froze. A sudden wave of confusion washed over him. Images that were not his own pushed into his thoughts. He staggered, but did not fall. He remembered Earth best, the sound of rain. And Lyrae. "Stay with me," she whispered, though he could not hear her voice. "Man." Lyrae opened herself fully. not to read him, but to anchor to him. Their thoughts aligned again, stronger than before. Ethan's fear settled. His focus sharpened. He did not fight the Kraith with anger. Whoa, he held on. The Kraith mind struck harder. But every attack met the same thing: human persistence. They could not break it. Correct. Human thoughts did not scatter when hit. They returned. Again, and again, and again. The station's telepathic sensors went wild. "Command, something is happening," an analyst shouted. "The human, his mental signature is stabilizing the network." "What?" the commander demanded. "He's acting like a mental anchor." Across the station, telepaths felt it. The screaming stopped. Pressure eased. Lyrae stood slowly, her breathing steady now. She felt Ethan like a distant star, constant and unmoving. The Kraith panicked. They had never faced resistance like this. Their minds tried to withdraw. Ethan thought of everyone on the station. He did not know their names, but he knew they were depending on him. That thought spread. Through Lyrae, through the network, through every mind connected. The Kraith attack collapsed. Their psychic waves shattered and fled into the void. Silence followed. Gwei, medical teams, rushed to aid the injured. Systems stabilized. Emergency lights powered down. Ethan slumped against a wall, exhausted. He had no idea what he had done. Lyrae reached him moments later. She placed a hand on his arm. "You saved us," she said softly. He blinked at her. "I didn't do anything." She met his eyes. "You stayed." The council gathered in emergency session. Appeal. The data was clear. Human mental focus had resisted a full Kraith assault, not through strength, through endurance. "Humans are dangerous," one council member said. "No," Lyrae replied firmly. "They are dependable." A new classification was drafted that day. Humans, cognitive stabilizers. Threat level, unknown. Potential, extreme. Ethan returned to work the next cycle, but nothing felt the same. Whoa. Telepaths watched him with respect, some with fear. Whoa. Lyrae stayed close, not out of duty, but choice. She understood now. One minds were not made to dominate others. They were made to hold the line. And in a galaxy full of fragile thoughts, that made all the difference. The station was quiet again. The alarms had stopped. The Kraith had retreated. The wounded had been treated. Systems were repaired. Yet something had shifted forever on Helios Station. Humans were no longer just another species. Worked. They were something new, something unpredictable. Doubt, something powerful. Ethan walked down the observation deck corridor, hands in his pockets, thinking. It had been days since the attack, but he could still feel the strange energy that had passed through him. The echo of the Kraith assault, and the strange warmth of focus that had held the station together. Lyrae appeared at the far end, moving gracefully across the deck. She paused when she saw him. For a moment, neither spoke. Then she walked toward him, as if drawn by the same invisible pull that had connected them in the middle of the psychic storm. "You seem calmer," she said softly. Ethan smiled faintly. "I guess after all that, nothing really scares me as much." He laughed lightly. "Well, maybe a little." Lyrae tilted her head, studying him. "It is more than courage. You held the minds of dozens of telepaths against a species trained for psychic war. That has never happened." He shrugged again, pretending to be modest, though his chest was still racing. "I don't know. I just focused. I thought about what needed to be done. And about you." Her breath caught, not because of the words, but because of the clarity of them. Humans did not plan their thoughts for effect. They simply were. And what they felt could be more powerful than any mental assault, any weapon the galaxy had seen. "You thought of me?" Lyrae asked quietly, almost afraid of the answer. "Yes," he said honestly. "I guess I couldn't stop. I don't even know why. But every time something worried me, I thought of you. And it helped." The air seemed to shift between them, warm and quiet. For Lyrae, it was not shocking. It was not invasive. It was simply grounding. Humans carried others in their minds, whether they intended to or not. That simple act, the act of thinking, remembering, caring, was unseen and unstoppable. You are remarkable, Lyra admitted. And not just for your mind, for how human you are. Ethan looked down, shy for a moment, a small smile curling on his lips. I'm just me. No, Lyra said, shaking her head. You are more than that. The galaxy has never seen this. The days passed and the station began to return to normal. Aliens went back to their routines. Humans worked alongside other species without incident. But something had changed. Every telepath on Helios now knew human minds were not only resilient, they were transformative. A single human thought could stabilize a network, soothe panic, and resist psychic attack. Lyra found herself observing Ethan quietly. That she had no fear, only curiosity. His mind was always active, always moving, and yet always calm in the face of danger. Every decision, every thought carried weight, purpose, and focus. She wanted to understand him better. It was not as a test, not as a mission, but because she cared, and she realized that humans did not need to invade minds to leave an impression. They remained in them naturally. Ethan noticed her glances, too. He did not fully understand why he felt drawn to her, but he did. Even now, after the Kraith attack, even after everything, he found himself thinking of her. Often, involuntarily, always. One evening, as the twin suns of the system set beyond the observation window, Ethan and Lyra stood together in silence, watching the shifting colors of the sky. The other species on the station were far away, busy with routine tasks. For a brief moment, the station felt empty, safe. Ethan broke the silence. I keep thinking about how different things feel now. Before all this, I didn't know the galaxy had so many minds. So many thoughts. But after everything, I feel like we humans, we might be capable of more than anyone expects. Lyra nodded, eyes fixed on the horizon. You have always been capable. You just did not know it. The Kraith thought you weak. Everyone else thought you weak. But weakness is not in your mind. It is in the choice to give up. And you never gave up. A soft silence fell between them. Lyra turned slightly, meeting his gaze. Humans may seem ordinary, but you carry something no one else does. Wayne. Persistence, loyalty, care, and those cannot be broken, not even by psychic weapons. Ethan's chest rose with pride, but he did not feel arrogant. I guess that's just how we are. No, Lyra said, voice gentle. Men, it is who you become when you care. The next day, the council formally updated the station's records. Humanity was no longer classified as weak-minded or ordinary. The notes were clear. Human cognition demonstrates unmatched resilience under psychic assault. Human thought anchors and stabilizes telepathic networks. Potential for cooperative defense and emotional synchronization is extreme. Humans should be studied further, respected, and approached with caution. Even the Velithians, the galaxy's most disciplined telepaths, could not argue they had witnessed it firsthand. But for Lyra, the records mattered little compared to what she had felt. The echo of Ethan's thoughts in her mind. It lingered still, subtle and constant, like a soft current. She could not ignore it, nor did she want to. One evening she joined him in the maintenance bay. Tools lay untouched on benches as the station systems hummed in quiet routine. Ethan leaned against a table, staring at the lights of the distant suns. You're here again, he said, smiling softly. I thought I should, Lyra replied. You are always on my mind, too. Ethan laughed lightly. I guess that makes two of us. They stood together in silence, watching the stars drift past. Words were not needed. Dubs act. Humans carried thoughts like anchors, and Velithians carried understanding. Together, they were not only steady, they were strong. Across the station, the story spread quietly. Aliens whispered. Humans, it seemed, were something more than expected. They were capable of strength no weapon could touch. Not psychic storms, not overwhelming logic, not even fear itself. And for the first time, the galaxy understood something new. Humanity's greatest power was simple, persistent, and human. They did not dominate by force, they dominated by presence, by care, and by focus. Ethan and Lyrae continued to work side by side, learning from each other. The bond between them grew, not as teacher and student, or observer and subject, but as equals, a human and a Velithian, different yet connected by respect, understanding, and unspoken trust. The stars beyond the station twinkled quietly, indifferent to the small struggles within the walls of Helios. Yet the echoes of human thought, persistent and unyielding, had begun to leave a mark, and in Lyrae's mind, for the first time, a truth became clear. Humans were never fleeting. They stayed, they persisted. They mattered. Ethan's smile turned into a laugh as he glanced at her. I wonder, do you think the rest of the galaxy is ready for us? Lyrae tilted her head and smiled softly. No, she said, not yet. But someday they will understand. Together they watched the sunset. Together they faced the quiet stars. And for the first time, the galaxy began to see humans as something extraordinary, not because they fought harder, or moved faster, or thought sharper, but because they carried the universe in their minds without ever breaking.